Welcome to Dipsticks and Deals with John Vick and Jimmy B on Real Talk 1160. Everything you need to know about cars, buying, financing, trading, maintenance, repairs, auto body, and more. Join the program by calling 513-579-1160. Now, here are your hosts, John Vick and Jimmy B on Real Talk 1160.
Welcome to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. I'm John.
And I'm Jimmy B.
Oh, don't start that again, please. We also have the third wheel with us again this morning. Third wheel, what's up?
Good morning. Nothing.
Glad to have you with us. I would like to mention a couple things. Don't forget that you can listen to us no matter where you're going today. You can pick us up on the TuneIn Radio app and also on the Radio Loyalty app, which is one word. And if you're in front of a computer, dial up realtalk1160.com and hit the listen live button.
We've got a link on our dipsticksanddeals.com website also, same icon, so you can listen there.
Yep, and do we have a link on the Facebook?
We do not have a Facebook link yet, but we're working on that, as well as we're getting ready to we've got our archive shows now on dipsticksanddeals.com, which we're throwing on our Facebook page too. And we should have our real video cast available hopefully next week.
Great. Well, you can listen to us anywhere, anytime, any place around the world. We thank you very much for tuning in, because without you listening, then there'd be no point in us showing up here. So hopefully we're going to give you some good information that you can use as it relates to your vehicle needs, whether it be maintenance or purchasing a vehicle. And also want to remind everybody that we will be doing our broadcast live from Sharonville Car Show next week. Jimmy, you want to give us some more details on that?
The 35th annual Sharonville Classic Car Show put on by the Chamber out there every year. Big show. We invite everybody out, not just to hear us, but to or see us, but to see the show, because it's a big show. It's a really cool show. It's a good one. Come on out.
Have they narrowed down where we're going to be as far as location so people can find us?
We'll be in Sharonville.
Okay. Now, it is the downtown part, correct?
It is the old part of Sharonville downtown. They block off Reading Road. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'd love to see you, so please take a moment if you have time next week and come out and say hello. Also want to remind everybody there's a big event going on this Friday at St. John the Baptist Church on Dry Ridge Road. It's called Rusty's on the Ridge, and the Rusty Griswolds will be playing live. Tickets are still available, and you can get tickets Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, by calling 513-385-1010. Tickets for regular admission are $35, include your draft beer, appetizers, Skyline conies, snacks. If you do VIP, it's $45. You get all the same stuff. You will have early admission VIP. You have your own line for your beverages, and you will have reserved seating. So it's going to be a great time. If you've never seen the Rusties, you need to get out and see them. They are an absolute blast. And if you're familiar with them, then you know what I'm talking about. So come on out and see them. What do you got going on today, Jimmy? We're going to talk about maintenance.
We are going to talk about maintenance.
What kind of maintenance?
I think that's why it's called Dipsticks and Deals.
Yeah, overlooked maintenance, things that either you yourself are not aware of, or shops that don't check certain items, things that are important to your vehicle's value, its longevity, of course, and keeping you safe on the road.
Okay. Well, shoot.
Well, I want to start. We need to thank our sponsors, because literally without them we couldn't do the show. And those sponsors, our title sponsors, Rob Key Automotive, Willie's Sports Cafe over in Western Hills, Hughesmid Schmidt Insurance, Harvey's Pest Control, Precision Power Washing. Is that the name of that? Precision?
It's Precision General Contracting. Yeah, but I mean, one of their big things that they do is power washing, but they also do everything. They have a power washing crew, but they also have a roofing crew. They have a windows crew. That's why they're
So they
called
do a
general
lot.
contractors. They do it all, and they're
Okay.
outstanding guys. They do a great job.
Those are good guys out there. Our sponsor spotlight is this week Mel's Auto Glass. You know, when we did the promo for Mel's Auto Glass and did a little bit of research, I had heard this before, and I confirmed it before we did this commercial when I was talking to Mel. In a crash, your windshield accounts for almost 50% of the rollover strength if you happen to be in a wreck that the car rolls over. So this isn't something that you want to leave to just anybody, and them big, giant corporate glass companies that can hire trainees, so to speak, green peas at 10, 12, 15 bucks an hour, may not be in your best interest. So call Mel's Auto Glass in Cincinnati. They're 513-563-7771. In Kentucky, 859-334-0707.
Let me ask you a question real quick about glass.
Okay.
Through my years in the automobile business, I've seen people come out and like drill a little hole in it, and then they put this resin type stuff and fix it. I mean, is that something that Mel's does, or is that not good to do?
Mel's.
He's laughing at me because what did I say? Mel's do.
Yeah. Mel's does
Answer the question.
They do resin repair.
But does the resin hurt when you do something like that? Does it hurt the structure of the window?
It doesn't. It actually bonds to the glass, and it becomes a part of the glass. In fact, a lot of insurance companies now are advocating for a resin repair versus replacement simply because of that structural integrity that could be jeopardized if the windshield's replaced. So as long as it's not in the line of sight, call Mel's because they do repairs.
I don't know why Jimmy's got the laughs today. Third wheel, what'd you do to him when he came in here?
Nothing. I think it's the grammar that we use here.
He was tickling me.
So what you're saying is you're better off to replace. But I mean that is an alternative if somebody doesn't
if
have
the chip-
insurance or can't afford to have it
If
replaced.
it's not in the line of sight and it's not obstructing your view and it's small enough, then you should opt to have it repaired versus having the glass taken out and put back in. The other thing I was talking to Mel's too about is he's been doing this in the tri-state for over 25 years. He has outlets for glass that is branded with its own name but is actually made by the same OE company that makes the original equipment glass. So if your insurance company doesn't want to pay for factory glass, Mel's has an outlet on certain vehicles where he can get literal factory glass under a different name, so you don't have to sacrifice quality, and he will save you some money doing that. So call Mel's.
And OE is original equipment.
Original equipment. What came in the vehicle when it was manufactured new. Yes, that's factory.
Okay. I didn't get you offline with thanking our sponsors. Were you done with your list? I want to make sure we didn't leave anybody out.
I don't think we left anybody out.
Okay, good. So we're probably getting close to the break, and we didn't get a chance to get started on our topic at hand. So just give us a general rundown of what we're going to be covering when we come back.
Well, there's a couple of things relative to vehicle maintenance, and if you don't go to a certified repair shop, let's say you go to a lube facility, those fellows, as good as they are at what they do, they're not versed in certain maintenance items. They don't always know what to look for, and these are things a lot of times that you're not a consumer's not capable of looking for. They don't know what to look for. You might have to crawl on the ground. You may not know you have some things on your vehicle that need to be serviced. So we'll get into all that when we come back.
Okay, we'll make sure that you know all about it with you, me, and Jimmy B, and the third wheel on Real Talk 1160. Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free to give us a call anytime if you have any questions. 513-579-1160. Be glad to answer all your questions.
Jump on our Facebook page, too.
Yeah, matter of fact, I just had somebody send us a message. They said, I think insurance companies waive the deductible on windshield repair versus replacement, too. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I know that I think Third Wheel can answer to Ohio. I know in Kentucky that any glass repair or replacement is deductible free completely. So if you're in Kentucky and you call Mel's, for instance, and you get a glass repair or replacement, either one, a side window replacement, there's no deductible and it doesn't count against you as long as you have comprehensive insurance. Third wheel. What do they do in Ohio?
Yeah, mostly in Ohio though too. If you use the resin, you can pretty much waive the deductible.
Okay. Well, good. That answers that. All right, we're going to talk about some maintenance items like Jimmy B was talking about before. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, just like I said last week, week before, searching and researching the subject to make sure I'm telling folks the right thing, I found dozens and dozens of sites. I probably looked at 25 different sites as sources for maintenance, and it's kind of sad. I mean, really, because there's some of the big block automotive tutorials and blogs, and every news media outlet has an automotive section. When it comes to maintenance, they're all saying pretty much the same thing, and which I disagree with probably about 60% of it. And the reason is I see tags for different vendors and parts houses and different things over to the side, so I know they're gonna take their recommendation and advocate for that. And I don't think that's always the best thing for consumers and for drivers out there. As a for instance, shocks and struts, probably one of the most overlooked maintenance items on a vehicle. And again, like I said earlier, if you go to a lube facility just to have the oil changed, and while they may recommend some filters and some obvious maintenance things, they may not be versed in shocks and struts and what to look for. Now, I could tell you, even at our shop, we are a vendor for Monroe, and that's a trusted name, been around a long time. They do sell a good product in their struts and shocks. But in all of their point-of-sale material, all of their training, they're going to tout a 50,000-mile interval for struts and shocks. And even though we're a vendor, we don't sell them at 50,000. I think that's way too early. I believe shocks and struts really typically, depending on where you drive.
Shocks and struts?
Shocks and struts.
I thought you said shucks and struts.
Somewhere between 60 and 80,000 miles is where you want to really start having those inspected. That's when we see most of them begin to fail. And they all fail a little bit differently. The biggest telltale sign is because they're oil filled, they're going to leak. And if we see leakage, obviously we're going to recommend that they be replaced. The bounce test isn't real accurate, but we can do that as well. But the thing about shocks and struts is if you're not going to have those checked, when you get into the 80, 90, 100,000, over 100,000 mile range, you're going to start to see abnormal tire wear. You're going to decrease the brake distance, which is going to be harder on your brakes, plus it's not safe. Your steering and suspension is going to be compromised earlier or wear out faster. So shocks and struts are a big one. 60 to 80,000 miles, you want to start looking at shocks and struts. Tire rotations, this is another big one.
Let me ask you a question real quick about the shocks and struts.
Okay.
How much does driving conditions and driving habits play into the wear and tear?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to look at it like this. The one component on your vehicle that takes the most abuse is probably your shocks and struts. There's statistics out there as far as how many times they go up and down in a second or whatever, which it really, that varies. But it depends on how much off-road driving you do, what part of town you're from, how many potholes you fit, how hard you hit the brakes is a big deterrent or a big thing that factors into struts.
So if somebody knows that, okay, I drive off-road, or maybe I haul something, I take a camper, and then we're going through the woods, or they have a lot of quick braking type driving, do you recommend an earlier check for those people?
Well, again, the struts and shocks these days are manufactured with that in mind, and they're durable enough as long as they're not an economy brand, so to speak. If they're the OE factory struts and shocks, they can handle that as long as you're not exceeding the weight limit of the vehicle. If you do a lot of hard nosedive braking, yeah, you're going to subject your front struts especially to more wear and tear than what is typical. So 50,000 miles, I think that's a mileage interval to sell more shocks and struts, honestly, because I just don't see them failing. I've seen them fail at 50,000 miles, but it's not the norm. So I'm still saying 60 to 80,000, and if you top 80,000, more than likely around here, you probably need shocks or struts replaced.
Now, for the people that don't know out there, what is the difference between a shock and a strut?
Well, really, they function the same way. So, in regards to how they operate, they are the same thing. The difference in a strut is that the strut assembly replaces other components that you would find on older cars. So, when you would have an upper and lower control arm, now you have just a lower control arm because the strut assembly makes up the upper control arm. So
there are cars that have all shocks with no struts.
that's correct, and there's cars that have struts and no shocks. But literally, a strut is an assembly that has a shock inside of it. It's really the same thing. In fact, a lot of people still call them shocks instead of struts. But
Are struts more expensive than shocks?
typically, yes, struts are going to run probably anywhere from $20 to $50 more. Because it is a larger assembly. It actually it's what the coil spring sits on. There's a perch made onto it for the coil spring. Mounts go on top of it. Sometimes you have to replace them, sometimes you don't. I can tell you if you hit a 60 to 80,000 mile interval on your struts, you probably won't have to do strut mounts, which is what bolts into the top of the fender. If you go longer than that and you wait till they start making noise, it's going to be a lot more expensive because you're going to need the mounts as well.
Good stuff.
Tire rotations, a big one that's missed. And again, a lot of folks don't know how to gauge tire rotation and when it's needed. And the easiest, a real good interval for a tire rotation is probably between 7,000 and 9,000 miles. But the easiest way to remember it is just every other oil change. And this is important just simply because the tire wear is different front to back. You have turning wheels on the front. The weight's different with the engine. So it's important to have those tires rotated on a regular basis. Again, every other oil change is a good rule of thumb, makes it easy to remember. If you don't do that, you're going to end up – and with the price of tires, we were talking about that last week and how they're escalating substantially here lately. You want to get the maximum life out of those tires. Plus, any tire tread wear warranty is going to be void if there's evidence that the tires haven't been rotated, and that's pretty easy to tell when the front tires are wore out twice as much as the back. Then we know that they haven't been rotated, and the manufacturer's going to know too.
Now I notice there's a few different kinds of tire wear. There's cup tires, there's camber wear, and there's what's the other one?
Under and over inflation.
Okay. When I seen cup tires, one thing I think people need to be aware of: a cup tire could have almost brand new looking tread on it, so you can look at a tire that's cupped and think you got a good tire when really you got a dangerous tire.
Well, that's why down at the shop we don't put tires on a car unless we accurately assess the shocks and struts, because you're doing such a huge disservice. You can put brand new tires on a vehicle, like you said, and within 5,000 miles they're cupped and the front end shaking, or you're getting a noise. And that could be due to the struts or shocks being worn out. It could be from poor tire balance, which there's no interval for balance. If it doesn't shake, don't try to fix it. There's no interval for that. But those cup tires, typically, now you can rebalance a cup tire and drive on it, and if you're lucky, you can get it to smooth back out. But a lot of times, once that trend begins, it's inevitable. It's gonna continue and get worse.
Now there's the balancer when they do balance tires.
Mm-hmm.
That's precise. There's no guessing game, is there? Because I've seen a car that looked like on the backside of the wheel that somebody hammered in some weight. So you don't put them in with a hammer. It looks like it was a do-it-yourself job. Not a smart idea, is it?
No. I mean, you have to have a precision balancing machine. It's computer balanced, and it's calculated to for the wheel size and dimension, and it is precise. It's exact. It balances the vehicle or the tire and wheel together down to zero. So.
Well, I'm sure Jimmy B has a lot more when we come back on
I do.
Dipsticks and Deals with you, me, Jimmy B, and the third wheel on Real Talk 1160. Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free to give us a call if you have any questions. 513-579-1160. 513-579-1160. Let me ask you a question. We were talking about maintenance items before.
Yes.
And what would be the most neglected or missed maintenance item that you see?
Well, doing this research, and I probably looked at 25 sites. There wasn't one site that I found that listed this item. It's an item that most people don't think of, and it does relate to safety in one regard. And do you guys have any idea what on a vehicle that, if not checked, could result in an issue out on the road? Any idea?
Other than what we talked about.
Oil?
Shut up.
I mean, I guess maybe tie rod ends. I don't know.
No. Actually, what it is, and it sounds fairly simplistic, how many places check, and I didn't find any sites that listed having the spare tire, checked for proper pressure, inflation, and more importantly, or as importantly, I should say, the carrier assembly that lets the tire out to make sure that it all works properly and it's lubricated. Because I'm telling you, we see them come in the shop and we do that. And we see trucks and minivans and SUVs where even if the tire has plenty of air in it to use as a spare, the carrier's not been used. It's never been cranked down since it was new. And in the event that you get a flat tire and you need that apparatus to work and it's rusted up and frozen and doesn't work, now you got a safety issue. Now you got more frustration, potentially a tow bill. And so many people overlook something as basic as making sure the spare tire works properly when you need it to work. And what goes along with that is knowing how to use it. A lot of folks out there have no idea where it is, where the jack is. You need to look in your owner's manual, look through your vehicle. If you don't know, come down to the shop. Come down to Rob Key Pool in the service drive. Say, hey, I heard you on the radio. Show me how to do this. We'll show you, and we'll show you for free because it's that important. But make sure wherever you're having your car serviced that they check, and they actually have to let the tire down out of the car, lubricate it, make sure everything works fine. Some vehicles, SUVs, and minivans have them stored inside. Make sure they take that cover off, check the tire pressure, make sure the jack is in place where it needs to be. So when you need it and you're out and it's dark and you're somewhere you don't know where you're at, you're not going to subject yourself to something you don't need to.
Now, let me ask you a question about spare tires. There's a car that I see driving to work every day, the same car. I guess we leave at the same time, but he's had a spare tire, that little donut spare tire on his car, I know, for 3 months. What is the designed wear life of that? And I'm pretty sure there's some speed most restrictions as far as how fast you can go.
There is, and most of them are going to tell you, and it'll be imprinted in large print on the side of that tire. 55 miles an hour typically is the max speed for one of those, just because they're not designed to deflect the heat as well, so they do get hot. It is a smaller tire, a little bit different structure, so you don't want to exceed, and that's probably more important than how long you ride on it. As far as longevity, 3 months, wow. I mean, they don't have a tread depth that you can gauge, so I don't really know how to answer that other than I can't imagine why somebody would wait that long to go get a tire.
But the point is that it's meant to be a temporary solution. It's not meant to be I got another tire, so...
Well, those tires say temporary right on the side of them. So, yes, that is to get you to a safe place, to get the tire fixed. But there you go. I was just shocked that no source that I looked at even mentioned the spare tire to have the pressure checked in it. And if that's being overlooked, everywhere, then people are getting out. And how frustrating is that? If you can do the tire yourself and you know how to do it, you get it out and it's flat, or it's got plenty of air in the wrench brakes that takes it down out of the vehicle. So, and something else to keep in mind: we ran across a vehicle the other day in the shop, one of the new Caravans, the new bodied Caravans from Chrysler. The position of the spare tire on this vehicle is in the center of the vehicle, forward of the rear differential. So it's almost under the center console between the two front seats. And you take a cover off inside the vehicle and you crank the spare tire down, but that forces you to lay on the ground, unhook it, and drag it out from underneath your van, which is absurd to me.
That is absurd. Because
the folks that are driving those typically I don't think they want to crawl on the ground, and it's not safe, and I think that's a poor design. So whether you've got one of those minivans or any other vehicle, if you've never thought about it until now and you're listening, see if you got an owner's manual and check it out. If not, bring it in the shop or start to make sure that spare tire works.
That's a good point. It sort of reminds me of how you would practice with your family for tornado drills or a fire drill in your house. That would be something that I overlooked in having young drivers at home, that I should teach them how to do these things.
Third wheel is saying to get out in the garage and get your family in the car and act like you have a flat tire and everybody knows what to do.
Exactly.
Which, most importantly, is stay in the car.
For the most part.
Got kids and such, only one person needs to be out and then one looking over the shoulder to make sure.
Well, it does sound a little funny that people might not know how to change a tire, but my daughter had a flat tire on her car, and guess who got the phone call to go get her? I mean, I don't want her out there changing a tire, but it made me realize if I couldn't get there, she wouldn't know what to do. She wouldn't know how to hook the jack up. She wouldn't know how to loosen the lug nuts. So, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it is.
We don't want to get off topic very far, but that brings up a good thought. The most important thing, I was asking my wife this the other day, what's the most important thing that you can have in your vehicle when you go out? The very most important thing you never want to leave in your car without.
Keys.
Other than keys.
Yeah, I have a coffee. I don't know.
Everybody says flashlight and things like that, which is true. It's a good idea to have a flashlight. But a cell phone these days. The cell phone is your best defense if you have a breakdown on the road. So keep that in mind too.
I was going to say, guys, this may be shocking to you, but there are some people who know absolutely nothing about cars, and that
like
would be
who?
That would be me right here on the other side of the glass. I got a flat, and I had to call my brother, who's a mechanic, to come change my tire.
You couldn't change your own tire.
I didn't know where my jack was in my car.
Way to go, Rick the Brick.
I stick to sports, so I just thought I'd interject there for a second.
Well, we appreciate that, and maybe that rings true with a lot of folks listening. So
during the commercial break, I'll come around, give you my man card. You can punch a violation on it.
Well, I think it too at that age that Rick the Brick is in, that age group, they're used to calling AAA or calling somebody else.
Right.
So they haven't really had a chance to do anything with their vehicles, nor do they want to.
Right. Hey, Rick, does your vehicle have a cabin air filter?
Huh?
Okay, exactly. Exactly. And that's another safety issue, too, that's overlooked commonly, is cabin air filter. How many folks even know if they have a cabin air filter, and what is it?
Can you speak English?
I'm trying.
Okay,
I'm trying.
thank you.
A cabin air filter, not all vehicles have them. Those that do, if you don't have that thing maintained, it's no different than the furnace filter in your house. Rick, do you change that too? You change your furnace filter?
No.
Okay.
She's like, does my furnace have a filter?
He's like.
I'll leave that to my landlord. I'll call the maintenance guy.
This segment was designed for Rick the Brick, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But that thing gets clogged up with pollen and bugs and nastiness, and bacteria grows on them. And
mold.
Everything. And it's not healthy. It's not safe, especially when you haven't changed it. You're riding around in the wintertime with your windows up. If you don't know whether you have a cabin air filter or not, and your owner's manual, even if it says if equipped, your vehicle may not have it because some models did, some didn't. If you send us an email at ask@dipsticksanddeals.com, give us your vehicle make, model, and year. We prefer the VIN. If you have that, we can look it up and tell you for sure whether you have one of those. So that's a big one that's overlooked, is cabin air filter. Timing belts, there's another one. Whether you have one or not, who knows, because it varies by manufacturer. Some models have them, some don't. Again, ask@dipsticksanddeals.com. At least give us your engine size if you know it. If not, get us the VIN number. We can tell what engine's in it and whether it has a timing belt. That's typically between a 60 and 110,000 miles for most manufacturers. Detrimental in a lot of cases if it has an interference engine, which is where the valves that go up and down and the piston goes up and down, if they're not synchronized properly and they don't both go down at the same time and up at the same time, they hit one another and destroy the engine, basically. So not to scare you, because not all engines have that set up, but a lot of them do these days. These tight tolerance engines, that's the only way they can get the fuel efficiency out of them and make them work right and get that horsepower to make those tolerances that tight.
Well, we're getting ready to go into break, and I know you're not going to have enough time to answer this, but when we come back, I'd like to know what the difference is between a timing belt and a timing change, other than the fact one's rubber, one's a chain.
We'll ask Rick.
Okay, yeah, we'll ask Rick.
I know my car has a belt.
Okay.
You're listening to Dipsticks and Deals with you, me, Jimmy B, and the Third Wheel on Real Talk 1160. Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free with any questions. Give us a call, 513-579-1160. Now, Jimmy B, before you were talking about timing belts, and you made a statement, some may have a timing belt, some may not, and I asked you what is the difference between a timing belt and a timing chain. I know one is obviously made of rubber and the other one's an actual chain. Could you enlighten me?
Well, that's exactly the difference. The timing belt is a rubber belt, like a serpentine belt that drives the accessories of the engine on the outside that you can see. The timing belt is usually under a cover and you can't visibly see it. So you can't judge its wear unless you start taking some things apart. That's why an interval is important on that. Timing chains, there's no intervals for those. They're useful life components, so you should never have to do anything. Timing chains have tensioners that a lot of times are oil-driven and can wear out, which can affect the chain. So it's important to pay attention to it, but there is no interval for a timing chain.
Because I know selling used cars, a lot of people that come in that look at, it seems like it's Hondas in particular, if it's a 100,000-mile car, 120,000-mile car, they always want to know if the timing chain's been done.
Well, and that's because Honda's synonymous with timing belt engines, but they make vehicles now that don't have timing belts. They're big V6s and things. Some of those, not all, but some of them have timing chains. And all manufacturers manufacture timing belt engines and timing chain engines. I look to see more timing belt configurations because it's so much lighter. And for fuel efficiency standards, to meet those, I think they're going to have to lighten the engine assemblies up somewhat, so we might see more timing belts.
But every car has one or the other, right?
They have one or the other. I think if you look at a rotary engine in a Mazda, they're a gear-driven engine. So there are some that don't have either or, they're gear-driven, but that's a totally different animal, and it kind of goes along with the timing chain where there is no interval for replacement there either.
Okay. Well, let's take a little bit of a break from talking about the actual maintenance stuff for a little bit, and let's get into some news. What do we got going on in the news this week?
Well, I know a big topic, being from Kentucky. Now, I don't live in Kenton County, but I know folks who do, and $35 additional is what Kenton County is proposing when you get your license plates renewed there every year. And that's to cover, I guess, the cost of the 911 operation in Kenton County. I got to tell you, living in Kentucky, and everybody hears the horror stories. I have a few vehicles that I tag every year. And even outside of Kenton County, anywhere in Kentucky, the taxes and the use tax and all of that, it's expensive. It's several $100s. It's based on the vehicle's book value. So it gets very expensive in Kentucky to tag and license a vehicle. I don't think the folks in Kenton County are too excited about adding another $35. Now, the other thing I do know about the 911 system in Kenton County, it really handles a large portion of northern Kentucky. Why it would be just Kenton County, I don't know. You'd think it would be at least a 3-4 county deal to pay for it, because I know they offer 911 service for a lot of other municipalities and counties in northern Kentucky. So we pay enough, don't need to pay any more. Carfax has reported last week that there is an estimated 3 million cars that have open recalls on them that are out there, either for sale or being driven. That's a lot. 3 million that have open recalls. Because if you're not having an issue, why would you think maybe I got something on a recall? So,
and some of them can actually be safety related that are important that you might not notice, right?
Well, in the majority, anytime there's a recall, it's usually always safety related. They will issue service bulletins for things that are not safety related. That are manufacturing or design defects. But if there's a recall, they've related it somehow to a safety issue, which is what makes this so important. If you want to check, there are some sites online. Some of them are better than than others. The easiest way to do this is to simply call a dealer that is of the manufacturer vehicle that you're driving. So if you're driving a Ford Fusion, call the service department. Tell them you'd like to have a VIN check for recalls and give them your vehicle number. Some will require the whole 17-digit VIN. Some will only need the last 8. But all manufacturers have a system. It takes just a couple of minutes, if that, just to punch the VIN number in. It's going to tell them and whether or not there's any open recalls so that you are aware. That's a lot more accurate because it's VIN specific than going online and punching your VIN number into one of those search engines. So just call a dealer, have them run the VIN, find out if you've got a recall. You may be surprised you could have several of them open on a particular vehicle. This is one, John. What do you think about this? The average new car prices, they've hit a new all-time high at $30,748.
Yeah, that's an average.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that means some maybe, well, probably your cheapest new car right now. I'd be surprised after rebates if you could get anything any lower than $16,000 or $17,000. But heck, I know a Super Duty diesel brand new's loaded up upwards to $60,000, almost $60,000. Yeah,
well, that's up 7% from this time last year. I mean, that's a lot.
Does it have to do mostly with, they're coming out with new hybrids and electric cars and things like that to cut down on the cost of gas that now they're adding to the actual price of the vehicle themselves?
Well, actually, hybrids have kind of been a big flop. They never sold real well because of the price of the car. For instance, a vehicle that is non-hybrid brand new might cost you $21,000, and to get that same vehicle in a hybrid is $30,000. So, you'd have to do a whole heck of a lot of driving to be able to make up the difference that you're going to save in gas by buying a $30,000 hybrid. So those sales kind of flopped.
That's right, and it's I can just remember a few years back thinking, man, $20,000 for a car, and now that's a low end car.
That's what I paid for my Saturn in 07, and I'm $500 away from paying it off now.
Right.
So, that was 5 years ago, so it's taken me that long to pay it off.
Well, it sounds like you're ready to buy one then.
Hell no. I am driving that thing till the wheels fall off.
I hear everybody say all the time, yeah, I want to be without a car payment for once.
Which, Rick, based on what I gather hearing you this morning, the wheels falling off of that Saturn could be sometime soon.
Oh, so. Well, let me reiterate that statement. They've fallen off before. When they fall off and I can't put them back on or get someone to put them back on or the engine starts,
Okay.
I'm only at 113,000 miles. I'm gonna hit 300 in this thing.
Well, hey, and you bring that up, and that's a good point. What used to be pretty much a cutoff for cars' life was around 100,000 miles, and that's changed. We take in trades all the time with 180, 250,000 miles, and then we turn around and sell some of those cars. If they're in decent shape.
Well, they're built better these days. There's no doubt. I don't think anybody can deny that. They are built better. I got one out in the parking lot here at the studio that has 218,000 on it, and it runs great. So, yeah, you can get a lot more useful life out of them as long as you know some of the things we talked about earlier, what to look for, what to maintain, and keep them running. And I'll tell you, with $30,000 being the average these days, a lot of people are going to want to hang on to them cars. So if you're going to do that, maintain that value, you've got to maintain them.
And that's exactly why a late model used car, and you can get a 2012 car with 8,000 or 10,000 miles on it, is really your better option, because most of your depreciation on a vehicle is going to come in that first.
Right.
Actually, as soon as somebody buys it,
yeah.
And you're going to take that big hit in that first year. So if you can find a gently used one that somebody has driven and for whatever reason maybe had an unexpected pregnancy and that sports car don't work, now they need a minivan, which happens just because somebody trades in a car that is that new.
There's lease returns too.
Yeah. There's lease returns. There's all kind of stuff, but it doesn't mean that anything's wrong with the vehicle. So that's
how I buy it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a smart. Yeah, you save thousands and thousands of dollars, and that's something we can get into a little bit later as well.
Okay.
You're listening to Dipsticks and Deals with you, me, Jimmy B in the third wheel, and also Rick the Brick on Real Talk 1160.
Welcome to Dipsticks and Deals with John Bick and Jimmy B on Real Talk 1160. Everything you need to know about cars, buying, financing, trading, maintenance, repairs, auto body, and more. Join the program by calling 513-579-1160. Now, here are your hosts, John Bick and Jimmy B on Real Talk 1160.
Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free to call in with any questions at 513-579-1160.
You want to know what is sad?
What?
You know, we in the news a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Nissan not making Infiniti products in Japan anymore. And they were looking at the U.S. and China. Well, they made a choice. China. They're building a new plant in China. Ford's building a $760 million plant in China. Volvo is going to add 10 new models in China. Volvo, we talked about last week, too. They're actually owned by the Chinese. So, kind of sad with our economy, such that it is, that the car market is in China.
Yeah, and well, that's been the case for a long time. And a lot of the foreign cars they talk about, they're made in the United States now, and really they're assembled here. I mean, the parts are still made overseas. Granted, it does bring some assembly jobs, but I think it's a misstatement to say that they are made here because they're not made here. There's a big difference between being made and being assembled. Real quick, let's go to the phones. We have Rich from the Sharonville Chamber of Commerce. He's probably going to talk a little bit about the car show that we're going to be live at next week. How you doing today, Rich?
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a beautiful day. It's going to be more beautiful next Sunday, the 29th, for the 35th. Are you ready for this 35th annual car show in Sharonville?
Wow.
That's huge.
That is unbelievable.
Well, I tell you what, we're really excited to be a part of it and look forward to what I hear is just an awesome show.
It is unbelievable. We have you guys in a premier spot so you can be broadcasting and talking to folks all day long. We expect between 400 and 500 classic automobiles and upwards of 6,000 to 8,000 people. We have a midway. We have food, waffles, all kinds of different business venues. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Is this an event, Rich, that has just grown and gotten bigger and bigger and bigger each year? I've been up there several times, and it's just an incredible show. But do you guys grow this show and get it a little bigger every year?
Well, you know, it's a function of the weather is what it really comes down to.
Right.
The last couple of years, we haven't had the best weather, and we've only had a few hundred cars. 2 or 3 years ago, when we had great weather, we had almost 700-800 cars. Had to finally shut it down. We couldn't bring the police wouldn't let us bring any more cars into downtown Sharonville.
Wow.
So it's the first car show. Can you imagine? You've been working on your car, you're on your back, you're rolling up underneath, trying to get the little tiny bit of oil off, fix something up just a little bit. You've been doing this day in and day out during the winter, and now it's finally spring. It's the beginning of the year, and it's the first time to put your car out there in one of the classes. You have a chance to win a trophy, but most of all, the pride that you have, the pride of showing your car.
A lot of work, a lot of man hours, a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rich, let me ask you a question. Is to be an entry into the show, is that already booked up, or is there still spots available? And if there is, how do they make sure they get themselves a spot?
That's an excellent question. Excellent question. The express entry coming in, the express lane entry, that has already we've had to shut that down now because we're sending out things that allow them to come in. But the day of the show, which is next Sunday, officially the show opens at 9 o'clock in the morning. The police department sometimes allows us to let cars in a little bit earlier, but the bottom line is come at 9 o'clock, get in line, $20 gets you in the door. We'll send you. You'll be classed by one of the types of classes of the car that you are, a Mustang, Corvette, whatever it may be, a 1960 car, whatever it is, and they'll direct you to that area. You park your car, you register, you get a ballot, and each class will be peer voting. They'll be judging their own class, and when we're done at 3 o'clock, we'll be giving out first, second, and third place awesome trophies to each of the winners in each of the 17 different classes.
Well, that's great. And we've already ordered up some great weather for the show next week, so it's impossible for it to rain, but just for some reason that would happen. What do people need to know? Would the show continue on, or do we have a rain date?
Yeah, and that's another excellent question. I'm glad you brought it up. Two things to do is, if you have any doubt, either call the Sharonville Chamber. We'll have it on our voicemail, which is 513-554-1722, 554-1722, or go to our website, SharonvilleChamber.com, and we'll have it on the front page. But the bottom line to it is we do not cancel under any condition. Even the years that it's rained and snowed, we've had 150, 175 cars, and the reason we can't alter the date is because the police, the fire, the sanitation, all the businesses, the 1160 radio, all of them have commitments for following weeks, and so it's either then or never.
And that's good for the people, because if you make plans to go next week, you can know that it's not going to change. And so many car shows do that. If it rains, the show's canceled, so that's good to know. So, Rich, I tell you what, we look forward to being there next week. We're really excited about it, and we just thank you for calling in and letting everybody know what's going on, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Well, I thank you. It's my pleasure. We're thrilled. 1160 Radio is coming on like gangbusters. You guys are part of the reason for that. Thanks so very much, guys.
Thank you, Rich.
That's going to be next Sunday, and we will be broadcasting live from 9 to 11. And the car show goes to what time, third wheel, 3 o'clock?
9 to 3.
9 to 3.
And they can check it out on the Sharonville Chamber's website.
Yeah, it's their 35th year. This is just an awesome show. If you've never been before, I'm telling you, you won't be sorry if you do, so make sure you get out there. What do we got in history today, Jimmy B?
Well, before we get to history, as a nice segue, it's not going to cost as much to get to the Sharonville Car Show. Gas prices are actually falling a little bit. National average is down to $3.87. Local average right around $3.76. Now, we were looking this morning, we saw some for $3.60 over on the west side of Cincinnati. And where I live down in Kentucky, I'm $3.89. I mean, I don't know what you guys are getting it for, but I've not seen gas that low in months and months.
No, I think the cheapest I seen it was $3.79. I believe that was the Speedway on Corrine and 275 right there at the exit.
I'll tell you what, last week the Shell station out on Route 4, they had it at $3.59, and I almost turned around to fill up because I had a quarter of a tank, but I figured, screw it, I was almost home. Next morning, I was driving back out. It went back up to $3.79. I was pretty pissed about that.
That's why when you see prices go down like that, you'll see lines, and people will wait in line for 45 minutes to save, 15 cents a gallon.
Right.
But money is tight these days, and it's a big deal. So, it's perfectly understandable.
I would have went back. I probably would have bought a gas can and went back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $25 to cut your grass these days.
It's not the first time my laziness has bitten me in the backside.
Are we going to break? All right. Well, we'll be right back with Dipsticks and Deals. You, me, and Jimmy B in the third wheel on Real Talk 1160. Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free to give us a call, 513-579-1160. I'm John Bick. We have Jimmy B, the third wheel, and Rick the Brick at the controls, flying the Dipsticks and Deals mothership. How'd you like that?
That was redonkulous.
I thought that was fantastic. Absolutely,
that was
fantastic.
something.
Okay, we've covered. I kind of lost track there. I got so excited about talking about the car show that I forgot where we were in news and history. Did we get into history yet?
No, we're going to talk about automotive history this week. In 1964, April 17th, Ford Mustang was officially introduced at the World's Fair in Flushing Meadows, New York. That car at that time had an MSRP of $2,300. Like to have one of them now for about $2,300, huh?
Oh yeah, Car related, a nice little fun fact. I mean, we talked a lot about tires today, and Michelin's a brand of tire. And their Michelin man, the roly-poly guy,
Right.
has been so big that in Spain, the term Michelin is now used to apply to folds of fatty skin around the waist. I mean, that is amazing marketing that people actually use what you've done for marketing and apply it to normal everyday life. So, I mean,
That is amazing. That's
yeah.
fantabulous even.
So now, third wheel, we know what to call that stuff around Jimmy B's waist. Michelin.
I always thought the Michelin Man was the cousin of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
I know
second cousins.
There's some resemblance. I don't know if they're blood related or not. Maybe that's something we need to look into.
I heard he's replacing Jared for the Subway thing. The Michelin Man.
Hey, I got a car fact real quick. Windshield wipers.
Yeah.
They were invented by a woman.
We talked about that already. That Anderson, Mary Anderson, was that her name?
Man, I didn't give you a name.
What was her name?
I didn't say anything about a name.
Did you research that?
I'm just trying to throw a fun fact out there. You just killed it. No, forget it.
An incomplete fun fact because what's her name?
That's why you're the third wheel.
Hey, let me, you know what? We're also going to have a car-related joke of the week, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now.
Okay, this will be funny.
Because it's funny, and it is family-friendly. Everything we do is family-friendly here on Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. A retired man was driving his old car down the highway when his cell phone rang. Answering, he heard his wife urgently warn him, "Andrew, I just heard on the news that a car is going the wrong way on 275. Be careful." And he says, "Well, that's not accurate. It's not just one. There's hundreds of them." He was the one that was driving the wrong way, Jimmy B. Why are you looking at me like that?
You know, our tagline
That's
is
quality
You will be
material.
smarter for having listened. We are now all dumber for having heard that.
I'm really uncomfortable right now.
Well, it looks like we got a caller. Let's go to Steve in Clifton. Steve, you're on Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160.
Hey, guys, love the show. You're doing a great job. I had a question. I don't know why this is occurring, but when I get in my car and start up my car, it says check fuel cap, and I go to check the fuel cap, and it's tightly secured, and I don't know why that light keeps coming on.
Well, when you have that light come on and the fuel cap is securely in place, that would be an indication that maybe the seal on the fuel cap is faulty, and you may need to replace the fuel cap. But there would be a code stored relative to that light, too, just like a check engine light that you can have checked at a shop, and they can verify that. There's actually a pressurization test on the fuel system, on the tank, that will tell them if that fuel cap is bad, which is what it sounds like. If the cap is present and it's securely tightened, as it is most of the time, and it still has that, then that's probably the problem.
And I don't know if this would work because I'm not in the mechanical end of it, but Steve, have you tried to remove the cap and seal it and see if that did anything?
I have numerous times.
Okay.
Sounds like you might be in the market for a new fuel cap, but you need to go have that checked and let them pull the codes, do the pressure check just to make sure. Or if you want to spend a couple of bucks and put a fuel cap on it and the light goes out, then it's resolved.
Okay.
How much does that generally cost, guys?
Depends on what kind of vehicle you're driving, but on the low end, you can get them for probably $3-4, and on the high end, they could be $17-18 for a fuel cap.
Okay.
Outstanding. Good question, Steve. Thanks.
I appreciate the call. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Steve. He appreciates the call. No, we thank you for calling, Steve. And if anybody else has a question like that, feel free to call 513-579-1160. And he brought up a good point, because one of the things I see all the time, and I don't want to get away from our history and all that fun stuff, because we'll get right back to that.
Don't do it.
But I'm going to anyways, because it's so important. Unfortunately, they've made all these little warning lights for people to monitor their car, and they really do become a nuisance. I mean, you have the low-pressure tire light, which is severely sensitive, that comes on constantly, and that's one of the lights I see most when we're taking a vehicle in on trade. And, air contracts and expands, so depending on the temperature outside, there can be an effect. If you're, a little bit light on your tire, that expansion and contraction could be enough to set that light off. And also you have a check engine light, which normally, if it's orange, refers to the emissions-related issues like a catalytic converter or an O2 sensor. What I do see a lot is them go off because of a non-properly sealed gas cap. And a lot of people will stick them in there crooked or something like that, and they come back and say, well, my check engine light's on. And really, that should be the first thing you do before you take it to a shop and spend money having it diagnosed. If you see that light go on, is go ahead and take the gas cap off, put it in straight, make sure it's secure, and then you're going to have to drive it for about a day for sometimes it'll reset a little bit quicker for that light to reset. If it doesn't at that point, then you need to get into your service shop right away, correct?
That's correct. Just remember on those lights, just like a traffic light for the most part, yellow is caution, means get it checked out at your first convenience. Red is detrimental. If you've got something red or any light on your dashboard that's flashing, you need to stop and get it taken care of right away.
Okay, where do we leave off? We left off with that great joke of the week is where we left.
That was something, too.
It was.
Check the source on that. 2008, April 20th, Danica Patrick, she won the Indy Japan 300, making her the first female in history to win an Indy race.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I like Danica Patrick.
She's never won one, though.
Do what? What, a championship? No.
She's never won an Indy race.
Yeah, the Japan. What did I just say, John?
I don't know. I wasn't listening.
Danica Patrick wins the Indy Japan 300. She won an IndyCar race.
I was referring to the Indy 500. She's never won.
She would have, but she ran out of gas last year.
Yeah, that's right. See?
Yeah, see, there you go.
Speaking of gas, we got a caller who's got a question about gas.
Oh, yeah, we do. It looks like Charlie's on I-75. Charlie, thanks for calling Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. What's your question?
Good morning. My question is this. I just bought a Lexus ES 350 that's 2 years old, and they say to use premium gas in it all the time, but then I've heard from other Lexus owners that they use regular and haven't had a problem. So that's my question.
Well, I tell you, Charlie, what I have an Infiniti that requires or supposedly requires the same fuel, and I tell you what I do. I do not use the premium fuel in that vehicle all the time. Once in a while, if I think about it, I might treat it to a tank of the good stuff. But what I do in the meantime is I pick up at an auto parts store a fuel cleaner octane booster. And I put that in there just to keep everything clean and running properly. But I got to tell you, on my Infiniti, I've not had an issue. I've owned the car for 5 or 6 years. Never had an issue relative to fuel, performance, or otherwise. It's not harming the converter. Never had a check engine light come on due to it. So will the car run leaner? Yes, on the better fuel. Is there a noticeable performance difference? Depends on how you drive the car. If you drive the car as a daily driver and you're not foot in it all the time, you're probably not going to notice a difference. So it's kind of a consumer choice relative to that and what you want to spend your money on, but it's not something that's going to be detrimental if you use the lower grade fuel.
Okay, the octane booster, you can get it at any auto parts store?
Any auto parts store will carry it. I will tell you where I purchased mine because I've tried a few of them. Some work better than others, but O'Reilly's actually has a house brand that works well, enough so that when you put it in the tank, you notice the difference. You feel it, and then that'll help clean everything out and keep it working properly.
We're coming up on a break. Thanks for your call, Charlie. This is Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free to give us a call, 513-579-1160. We got about another 25 minutes to go. We got a lot of stuff yet to cover. We're probably not going to get to it all today. So if you take the time to call in, then we'll still take the time to put you on the air. And there was something you said that bothered me before we went to break.
Oh, that's what could that have been?
Oh, that was it.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. You know what? We were talking on the break.
Danica Patrick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Danica Patrick.
She doesn't bother me any.
No.
She's fine.
She can lose all she wants. We don't care.
I think she needs to drive a convertible in NASCAR. That's just me, though.
Well, yeah, and she did do NASCAR. I almost said she doesn't, but she did do NASCAR. But
she still does, isn't she?
She does a little. She's on the nationwide.
Nationwide,
circuit. Yeah. But I like her in the IndyCar races.
Well, that's her. That's where she started, right?
Right. Yeah, she's
not any good there either, though.
Well, she won the Japan 300 in 2008. She's the first female in history to win an Indy race. Come on, but she can hang her hat on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
In
2008.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many have you won
in Japan?
How many have I attempted though? My record is flawless. I've never lost either.
Go change a tire or something.
Hey, while we were on break, Rick was asking a question about, and we covered this topic a few weeks ago about oil, but I thought it was something that needed to be revisited a little bit. He uses synthetic oil in his car, and he says his brother told him that even though he's using synthetic oil, that doesn't change the fact that he needs to do it every 3,000 miles.
Well, I think, and we did cover this, 3,000 miles is a little bit much for synthetic. I would take synthetic oil to 7,500 miles. I wouldn't have an issue doing that. So really, when I do, and I don't run synthetic oil, but when you get over 5,000 miles, closer to 6, just start planning to schedule to have your oil changed. And as long as you're there before 7,500 miles, you're fine. I don't think you should wait till 10,000 like a lot of them say.
Like Rick?
Yeah, I don't think you should wait till 10,000 miles.
I've only done that 5-10 times.
Half the life of the car, but that's okay. And you were talking about driving this thing to what, 250,000 miles?
If I can hit 300, I'm going to hit 300.
Yeah, well, changing it every 10,000 miles.
Or until I can afford to pay cash up front for a brand new car, which earlier in the show you're telling me is going to be a while. That's going to be a lot of saving on my part.
It's going to take a lot of saving,
well,
especially if you're going to be trading that car that you only change the oil on every 10,000
Yeah, you're going to save a bunch because you're going to be walking soon.
I'll sell it to a junk heap or scrap metal or something.
There you go.
Hey, real quick, we got another caller. Let's go to the phone line. We got Bruce on the line. Bruce, thank you for calling Dipsticks and Deals. You're on the air. What's your question?
Just got a question. Just was curious. It seems like I always have friends that buy a car at a dealership, and they want to always continue to take that car back to the dealership for service. And it seems like they, will pay more for labor on the hour. Say that car's got 100,000 miles on it. What's the difference in going to the dealership versus a privately owned garage?
Well, that's a great question, Jimmy B.
Well, there are some differences, and labor rate typically is one of them, and it depends on the manufacturer and where he's going. But I can tell you that a lot of dealers use what's called a labor matrix, and what that does, depending on the type of repair that you require, is what dictates the labor rate. So something more technical, something a little more advanced, it's going to cost you more on the hour. Whereas an independent shop typically doesn't use a labor matrix. They have just a flat labor rate. I can tell you at our shop we have a repair rate, we have a diesel truck rate, and we have a maintenance rate. So we're not going to charge you the same to put spark plugs in your car as we are going to do some interior engine repair. So the difference is the certifications. We talked about this once before. In an independent shop, a lot of times you get a lot broader experience and knowledge base because they're trained on various manufacturers and models. So they're not as tuned in perhaps as a manufacturer rep would be at a dealer, a technician, but really they are more of a late model type technician. They're very versed in the 5-year-old and newer vehicles because that's what the manufacturer is training them to stay up to date on. Stuff that's within warranty. I hope that helps.
Yes, yeah. I was just, if you have a 1992 model Grand Prix and you're taking it still back to the dealership to get a transmission replaced versus going to the private-owned garage. I mean, it seems like the cost at the dealership would be twice as much versus a private-owned garage. And I mean,
well, again, they are sponsored by a manufacturer who also sells parts. So Where if you go to an independent shop, you may be, or you should be, offered options. This is what a low mileage used unit costs. This is what an aftermarket made by Jasper or someone else costs, and then this is what the dealer gets for it, and let you make that choice. The dealer's probably going to sell you the manufacturer reman that their manufacturer sells. So if you're at a GM dealer, they're going to probably sell you a Delco transmission, or want to, which, yes, is more money. The warranty is not a factor because Jaspers carry an unlimited mile warranty. Some exceed the manufacturer warranty. And again, like I said, if they're on a labor matrix for heavy work, which is what a transmission would be, they're going to charge more per hour than an independent shop.
Great question, Bruce, and we thank you for calling. And if anybody else would like to call, feel free to call in at 513-579-1160. He brought up, a good point. And one thing that one of the parts you didn't mention, which more than likely, and maybe I'm wrong here, but a new car dealership is going to be less likely to offer you a junkyard part. Now, when a vehicle gets in a total, all the parts on the engine could be a 20,000-mile car, and all the parts on the engine are perfectly fine. So there's nothing wrong with a junkyard part. Am I correct?
Well, you're right. I did mention that. The used engine option, if it's a low mile, used engine option. And we're from an independent shop, and that's what we do. We offer you options. Here's the used, here's the cost for a used, and here's the warranty that comes with it. Here's remanufactured and the warranty that comes with it. Our labor rate has nothing to do with how old your vehicle is or what type of vehicle it is or what type of repair it is. It's a straight, flat labor rate, and, yeah, it's probably $20, $30 less per hour than most of the dealers. A lot less than Highline dealers.
Okay. Well, that's some good stuff, and let's get. But we gotta pick up the pace here because I've got a lot of stuff we want to cover just on our weekly stuff, such as the song of the week, and we picked a good one this week. It's called "Jaguar and Thunderbird" by Chuck Berry.
Keep good, Thunderbird food. 10-mile stretch on the Indiana road when a sky blue Jaguar and a Thunderbird fool. Jaguar sitting on 99, trying to beat the bird to the county line. Just a half a mile from Newtonville, had a speed sign sitting at the top of the hill. Said 35 miles.
1960 he recorded
Jaguar
this.
Thunderbird never made the sign.
Good stuff. I love the Chuckster.
Yeah, I love me some Chuck.
I was gonna say, I can tell it's a 60s song when I looked at it because it's only 1 minute and 50 seconds long.
Yeah,
Songs nowadays are 4, 5, 6 minutes. Back in the 60s, they were 2 minutes 30 seconds at the most.
Because they had instruments.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't just loop that over and over again.
Yeah, and they were looped themselves, so that's all they could do.
Plus, you can only sing about a Jaguar and a Thunderbird for so long before you run out of words.
It's a catchy little tune.
You go back, you repeat that first verse, but you do it a little slower or something. You change it up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm sure that there's going to be some Thunderbirds at the Sharonville Car Show next week. I don't know. Maybe there'll be some Jaguars there, but I guarantee you're going to see some old Thunderbirds, which are cool. I like some Thunderbirds.
I like the old 57, like in American Graffiti.
Yeah, that is cool.
And
The
Suzanne
convertible.
Summers, yeah.
Yeah.
Hot.
Yeah.
The car. And Suzanne Summers. Used to be.
Long time ago.
Yeah. How about
speaking of things that are old?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Rick. Just
No,
interrupt.
I was just.
No, Rick, you already started it.
Jimmy B is getting up there in age, but nothing a little Grecian formula can't handle.
We saw her in person, remember? We went to
Yes,
a
we
taping
did.
of
We
that
seen
show.
Three's Company live and in person.
Yes, we did with John Ritter, and that was a good time.
Yeah, that was pretty
Yes,
cool.
one
And
day
we
at a
also
time.
went to the Johnny Carson show. Do you remember who was on when we went to Johnny Carson?
Yul Brynner.
Yul Brynner.
A lot of people I don't know who that is.
Madeline Kahn.
Madeline Kahn.
Rick doesn't.
Madeline Kahn. Then they had some trumpet player. I don't know who. I'm not talking about Doc Severinsen. He was there, but he wasn't the guest. But, hey, we got a lot more to get to, a little bit of time to do it. We'll be right back in a few. This is Dipsticks and Deals with you, me, Jimmy B, and the third wheel on Real Talk 1160. Welcome back to Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160. Feel free to give us a call, 513-579-1160. We probably got time to squeeze another caller or two in, even though we have a lot that we got to cover in the next 10 minutes. Interest rates this week for good credit, and I mean top-tier credit. And we talked about beacon scores and what that means to your what interest rates you're going to get. So we're going to be talking probably 780 and above. You're looking at about a 2.49. Probably get that. You can get that rate for sure on a new car, but on a used vehicle, we're probably looking at 2010, 2011, 2012. Keep in mind that when the manufacturers advertise a 0% interest rate, that's not always the best way to go, because usually you're giving up a rebate with the rates being as low as they are. Taking 0% and forfeiting a $3,000 rebate probably is not going to be as good of a deal as just taking the 2.49 if you qualify for that type of rate. Average rates when we're talking about beacon scores in the mid-6s to low 7s. On late model vehicles, you're probably looking at anywhere between 3.9 and 5.9. And then if we get down to low 6s, about 7.9 to 10.9. And then we're lower than that.
Yeah, I got a question.
It's going to go all the way up to 25%, 24.95%.
Here we go.
Third wheel's got a question.
On a lease, you get a lease and you see like 2-3 year lease, $3,500 down, $3,900 down. Isn't it smart for a consumer just to take that $3,900, divide it by the 3 years to really see where you would be at as far as a payment goes if you were going to put nothing down?
Well, yeah, I mean that's one way to do it, but money down is really a better deal for the customer because, number one, it's going to lower your monthly payment. It's going to reduce your finance charges because it's that much less money that you're going to be paying interest on. And you should at least, if you're looking at buying a vehicle, put your tax and title down. I mean, it's bad enough that we got to pay tax on everything we do and everywhere we turn. You're paying a lot of tax on a vehicle purchase. The tax rate, it's a sales tax rate, so it's going to be, depending on where you live, anywhere from 6% in this area to 6.5% of the amount financed. So that's a lot of money. So you don't want to pay interest charges on your tax.
That's true on a buy,
right,
for sure. But he's talking about a lease. And like I saw recently, $89 a month, a short-term lease, but you had to put $4,500 down.
Right, and that's the way they advertise those. Money down on a lease does absolutely nothing but reduce your finance charge, right?
That's what I was saying.
I mean, reduce your payment. It doesn't reduce your finance charge.
That's what I meant. So
correct, yeah. I would, unfortunately, if you want to buy a car for $250 a month and it takes $4,500 to get that lease payment, then yeah, you got to put the money down. But that's all it's doing for you is reducing that front end payment.
But that could be the difference between if I buy or if I lease, because once I take that $4,500 divided up by 3 years or 36 months, my lease payment,
your literal payment's
higher. Yeah, so I could just buy the car with those low rates you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, leasing was the way to go for a long time, and I'm not saying that leasing is not a good thing right now. I mean, it really depends on the individual, how long you keep your cars. If you're somebody that is going to get in and out of a car every couple years, then leasing might be an option that you want to look at. There are leases available on late model used vehicles. But really right now with the way interest rates are, your best option is to purchase. And that's definitely what I'd recommend. So sorry for going in the wrong direction on your question, but that's what you get when you sleep for 3 hours last night because I was a little bit under the weather. But I'm feeling great.
Boyle.
Now that we got something to talk about that's fun. And I know Jimmy's got something good to say.
The Dipstick of the week.
Dipstick.
I got one. 20-year-old Michael Baker from Jenkins, Kentucky. This is a dipstick. This guy, he got caught siphoning gasoline or attempting to siphon gasoline out of a Jenkins City police cruiser. That's not just what made him a dipstick, because that's a dumb thing to do. He had his buddy take pictures of him doing it. You know where this is going.
I seen that. Yeah, he put his picture on Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook in Jenkins, Kentucky, for all the world to see him laughing and giggling as he siphoned fuel out of a police cruiser, to which he was promptly arrested.
And he also made a gang sign or something, didn't
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, I guess you could call that a gang sign.
he? Yeah, that's what I was hoping.
I think it was a gank sign.
Yeah,
but he was doing.
It was not a nice gesture.
He was flipping the American bird.
Telling everybody they're number one.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes, that's what he was
Boys,
doing.
I have a saying for situations like this. You can't fix stupid.
That's correct. There's no check engine light for that,
No.
which you wouldn't pay attention to anyway. So there you go.
I'm a busy man. I'll get to it.
Guess who's NASCAR points leader still?
The guy that you like to say his name,
Biffle.
Biffle.
Isn't that just fun? This is Greg Biffle. Biffle. He is the current points leader. Matt Kenseth and Dale Jr. still tied. They got the STP 400 in Kansas today at 12:30. So following our show, take a little brunch break and sit down and watch some NASCAR racing. Elliott Sadler still leading Nationwide Series. Ricky Stenhouse coming in second. They are in Richmond next week for the Nationwide 250.
Buggity, buggity, buggity. Let's go racing.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Now, hey, we had a saying in the car business, and we still do, that what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. What kind of manufactured vehicle does old Mr. Biffle drive?
That's a good question. I think he's a Chevrolet driver, but I don't know that. I'm not a big Biffle fan. I just like saying his name.
Oh.
Biffle.
Well, I'm still surprised that Dale Jr.'s hanging on to, he's tied for second, you said?
With Kenseth, yes.
That's good. I like that. You know, I like Dale Jr., but he's not been performing as a very good race car driver of late.
I like Jeff Gordon.
Yeah, no, I don't like Jeff Gordon.
Well, you know what, though? Not taking anything away from Dale Earnhardt and his ability, Jr., but he grew up in a racing family. His dad, obviously, his grandfather started it all.
The Intimidator.
But somebody like Jeff Gordon came up the tough way, came up racing go-karts, made his way and won. And I don't know, I got a lot of respect for a guy that comes up as an unknown, literally, doesn't have a, dad in the racing.
Now, a lot of them guys raced right here in our tri-state area over at Lawrenceburg Speedway. I know that Gordon raced over there. So did
Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
So-
They raced dirt modified, a lot of those guys, kind of a part-time hobby thing almost. Tony Stewart actually owns a track in Ohio, so, yeah, they run that circuit when they can. But I don't think they're in the point series for winning because it is kind of a part-time thing.
I didn't know they still do it. I know they used to do it. They still do it?
What's that?
Still race over there?
Oh, yeah.
Do they really?
Yeah, and they do in other tracks, local tracks, too. Now, the big names don't always show up at those tracks, but, yeah, the dirt modified cars, the midgets, the sprints, and all that, they still ride on those.
Yeah, I just know that's what
Small
how they got
tracks.
their start in racing, was racing those type of cars. And I know, well, is Gordon from Indiana? Is it him that's from Indiana?
No, Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart's from Indiana, yeah. I
Yeah.
knew one of them was.
And I was wrong. Biffle doesn't drive a Chevrolet.
What, do you drive a Ford?
He drives a Ford. He's a Roush racing person, so he's driving a Ford.
Yeah.
Thank
reminds
Third
me
Wheel
of
for that.
My man Mark Martin. I've always been a big Mark Martin fan.
He's an old dude.
Yeah, but what a phenomenal driver. Been doing it for a long, long time. So, anyways, let's move on. What do we got left? Oh, we're out of time?
Nothing. You got nothing left.
Wow.
The tank is
we
empty.
are out of time. Man, this show flew by today. We had a lot of great calls, a lot of good information. Hopefully we helped you out in taking care of your vehicle. Once again, don't forget, we're going to be broadcasting live next week from the Sharonville Car Show in old downtown Sharonville from 9 to 11. We would love to see you. Come on out. We'll have some things to give away. And if you got an old custom car that you have or used to have you'd like to talk about, we'll put you on the air and get you involved in the discussion. So we're out of time right now. We got to roll. It's been a good time. This is John Bick for Jimmy B, the Third Wheel, and Rick the Brick at the controls on Dipsticks and Deals on Real Talk 1160.
You knew he'd get a bonus and a big fat fine if you caught him before he crossed that